Thank you very much for joining us on the interview segment. Now today we are talking to Wairimu Githahu, a mental health consultant, and she's here to talk about mental health disorders, and more so the stigma and discrimination that comes with this kind of disorders. Wairimu, thank you very much for coming into studio today.
Thank you, Maryanne.
Yeah. And first of all, I'd just like to know, before we delve into the nitty-gritty of what we're talking about today, I'd like to know what you do, what you studied that enabled you to end up consulting on mental health.
Right. I trained in the UK. I started as a mental health nurse, a psychiatric nurse. I worked out there. I've been away for 22 years. I've only just come back. I've been in the mental health field for 12 years in different settings. I've worked with youth, I've worked in acute settings and rehabilitation centers as well. I've also worked with offenders and in an educational setting. So I believe I've kind of worked the full circle when it comes to mental health. In any bit that you can work with people with mental health, I've done it.
Done it all.
I've been there.
Yeah. And what made you end up in this field? A lot of people who go into medicine, go into surgery, the normal lines of medicine that we know.
Well, I've always been very passionate about the way people think. I've always been very interested about how the mind works. Psychology was an option, but I felt I wanted to work in a hospital. I wanted to be, work with patients hand in hand kind of thing. So nursing seemed the most obvious choice, right? Yeah.
Okay. So I think a lot of people wonder, or even I had always wondered, when you talk about mental health, what are you really talking about?
Mental health, okay, we say physical health when we mean the body.
That is clear for a lot of us.
Exactly. Mental health is about a healthy mind. Issues with mental health come when someone is not able to sustain a healthy relationship with a family, with friends, with colleagues, when a person is not able to solve issues as easy as other people, that kind of thing. So when you're not able to deal with things or you do things that are out of norm with the culture or society that you're living in, then mental health issues are suspected. So that's what mental health really is about. It's to do with the mind and the health of the mind or lack thereof.
Okay. And most of us associate mental ill health with, open, quote unquote, madness. That one has to be seen either walking, half clothed, or eating grass. So this very, very strange, out of the norm things. But there's a lot of other things that constitute ill health.
It really does. I mean, the spectrum is quite wide. Like you say, there is that side of things when maybe someone is having a psychotic breakdown where they may act, like I say, out of what we consider to be normal in society. But there's also the other side where someone may be depressed and it's not being seen. You think the person is just sad, little knowing that the person is actually quite depressed. They may be having suicidal thoughts and that kind of thing. So they're both spectrums, but they both fall under mental health.
Mental health.
Right.
Yeah, and I think what is of most concern is the ones that you wouldn't immediately identify as common wananchi.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And those are the most dangerous.
Dangerous is relative, because sometimes people with mental health can be dangerous because you're ill. You know what I mean? So, for example, someone who is suffering depression, they're probably a danger to themselves, in as much as they, like I said, they could be considering suicide. They could be, considering many different things. Whereas someone who's having a psychotic breakdown or who's schizophrenic might be hearing voices telling them to go out and harm someone. So like I said, danger is very relative in this. But either way, they need to be treated because it can go from depression to, to death. At the worst scenario.
More serious.
Right.
So what are some of the common conditions or disorders that have been seen, whether it's here or whether it's in the Western world?
Okay, that's the thing. The other thing with mental health, people are people. there's nothing specific to the Western world that we don't see here. Mental health will affect anyone, color, creed, sex, whatever. You've got the more common ones are the ones that are more known are things like the mood disorders, which would include things like bipolar. And bipolar is when one person has extreme mood. So 1 minute they're in a period of their life they'll be extremely ecstatic, they'll be overly joyful, they'll be spending money, they'll be, you know, the life of the party basically. And then after that comes a crash. So they're extremely depressed, the complete opposite of what they were before. So they don't want to get out of bed, they don't want to eat, they don't want to shower, they can't sleep. So that's part of the mood disorders. Then you've got what's known as the anxiety disorders, which under that things like OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, fall under. So where someone is convinced, if I don't open the door, if I don't touch the door handle 10 times before I open it, something's going to happen, something bad is going to happen. Then you've got eating disorders, which I think are becoming more obvious in today's society, because you've got the media, or, you know, a society telling you need to be a size 0, you need to be this size. So a lot of people are starting to think, to have a very bad relationship with food. So they're either binge eating, which means you eat a lot then throw up, which is kind of the same as bulimia, or anorexia, where you don't eat. You'll eat very, very little, you know, really counting your calories and exercising like crazy. So those are the kind of things that the more common ones. And you've also got psychotic illnesses, and schizophrenia would fall under this, and schizophrenia is where you is defined by hallucination. So you hear things, or you see things that are not actually there, but to you they're very, very real, and they're very, very there. So those are the more common illnesses.
And just to bring it home, you know, we've had increasing cases of a very normal man who, you know, works a normal job, has a normal family, and one day he wakes up and hacks his wife and 4 children to death, and probably even hacks himself to death. Is this linked to what we're talking about?
It definitely is linked to mental health problems, and it doesn't. This person didn't wake up one day and decide to hack the family. This has been boiling over a matter of time. How long, no one knows. And it could start from anything. I mean, the way the economy is now, there are more people losing their jobs, it's harder to make money, so you lose your house, you lose your income, you don't know where the next paycheck is coming, you don't know how you're going to look after the family, and you start having thoughts of, well, I can't look after them here, and I don't want to leave them in this way, so I might as well take their lives and take mine. And again, maybe sometimes religion comes into this, because you think, I'll meet them in the later life, and we'll have a better life. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is you've had an argument with your spouse, or your wife or your husband, and the anger that you feel, the way that you can hurt that person is by taking the children.
I see.
So there are two ways to look at it, and it could be either way. But like I say, it's something that builds up. It's not something that the person just wakes up one day and decides they're going to kill the family.
So, what, as speaking as an expert, are there things that a man like this, taking this case as an example, we've had cases, a man wakes up and kills his family. Are there things that this man would have displayed before he gets to this extreme?
Listening to people. A lot of the time it's just listening to people. A lot of people who have suicidal tendencies will talk about it, not directly, but they'll say things like, maybe this world would be better off without me, or this world would be better off without us, and stuff like that. Or they might start giving away things that they treasure. So, slowly getting rid of the thing, because I wouldn't need it in the next life, or wherever it is they believe they're going. So those kind of things should raise alarm, but not in and of themselves, but in a right. And the other thing is, a lot of the time, because again we're talking about stigma, a lot of the time, because of the stigma, no one wants to talk about it. you know. So even if you feel that you are losing control and you're going down the slippery slope, especially men, they won't say anything, you know, because you're not a man. What do you mean you're not in control? That kind of thing. So these are the kind of things we want, that we need to start looking at, and people actually being right, and people being able to actually go out and get the help.
I see. And like for this particular case, we've talked of say the economic situation, he's unable to support the family. We can identify that as a cause.
Yeah.
Are there other causes? Because we see this with people who appear to have, you know, an ideal life.
Yeah.
There's no problem.
It could be anything. It could be drugs. It could be alcohol. It could be a chemical imbalance. It could be hereditary. There are very many things that can cause mental health. It isn't an exact science as yet. There's still a lot of study going on as to why sometimes some people have mental health issues. But a lot of the things that right now people are looking at, the hereditary thing, the chemical imbalance, the taking of drugs. Sometimes it could be a head injury. Sometimes some medications can lead to depression. So it's a wide range of things that can lead to someone having mental health issues. Yeah.
Okay. And now coming to the discrimination and stigma.
Right.
And also, I don't know what the difference between discrimination and stigma is. You'll mention that. And it has been said, like there's a report that was released by KNCHR last year, about a year ago, saying, you know, one of the key bodies that has failed where mental health is concerned is the government. Yeah. What have they failed to do, or what have they not done right?
I think one of the problems is because this side of medicine, mental health and psychiatric illnesses is considered kind of the poor relation of medicine. Very little money is being given to that side of things. So, for example, there's a study that shows that 0.01% of the medical budget actually goes to this to psychiatric causes or that side of medicine. Now, if you consider also, I think it's something in Kenya. It's something like you've got 70 psychiatric doctors in the whole of Kenya.
70.
Right. They say the WHO says that there's one in 4 people suffer from mental health illnesses. Now, if you take that figure and you take 70 doctors,
and that is all over the world.
That's everywhere. And like again, it ranges from depression to schizophrenia to the other side of things. But so there's the resources are not there. So we're really failing people who've got mental health issues. The medication is extremely expensive. I've heard of people who per month are paying 40,000 shillings for medication alone. There's some people who don't make 40,000 a month. So if you have got a mental health issue that needs medication, you're either going to pay your rent or you're going to take your medication. You're not going to be able to take or to eat. And you won't be able to choose all three. So a lot of the time you're seeing people obviously choosing to eat, which means the mental health issues are then getting worse because there's no medication being given. So the government needs to somehow subsidize medication. They need to build more psychiatric wings, or better still, make sure that every clinic has a psychiatrist in there or someone who can deal with that kind of these kind of issues. You know, you've heard of diabetic clinics. We could have mental health clinics. You know, it would help a lot. It would help a lot.
Okay. Yeah. And the fact that now the government hasn't really gone out of its way to take care of the problem. Besides the cases we see, what are some of the other effects that some of them we see and some of the effects that we might see later as a result of the failure of the government today?
I think, especially with youth, with there being so little funding, a lot of the money is going to the adult or to the acute side of mental health. So the youth are not seeing any of this. And if we're not helping youth who've got mental health issues now, these people are going to be adults with chronic mental health issues. This then becomes a burden on society and to the hospitals, you know, because you'll have people who are in there with in having very long inpatient stays, whereas if we had caught it earlier, they could be living very normal lives under medication, having talking therapies, but living as normal a life as, whatever you call normal. So I think the government really needs to pull a finger out. I don't know if I can say that, but and actually start looking at mental health as something quite serious and something that we need to deal with now. I know they're working on the mental health bill, and that's something that's happening now, and hopefully before Parliament is dissolved, it will have been sorted out and signed and passed through, because then I think it will give service users, people with mental health issues, a lot more power than they do have now, plus the psychiatrists and the people who work in that field. Yeah.
Okay. Besides the high-level discrimination that we've talked about, which is government, what are some of the other forms of discrimination or stigma?
Societal. You've got society that, you see someone walking on the street, like we said before, who's maybe having a psychotic episode, you might start throwing stones at them instead of actually trying to get them some help, which they can get and lead a normal life. Like I said, will ostracize them, will throw stones at them. I mean, I've heard of a case of a lady who's been in one of the hospitals. Her family left her there. She's been there for over 20 years. She's now become she's like part of the staff. She helps out in the kitchen and stuff like that. She doesn't know who her family is. She doesn't know who her family is. And this is someone who is now living a normal life, but because they had a mental health issue, their family left them there and haven't been back. So these are the kind of things we're talking about. Like I say, it's people with mental health issues can lead normal lives. Like we're saying earlier, my lecturer, one of my lecturers in university is schizophrenic, but leads a normal life. He knows when he's getting ill. He knows when to start taking his medication or when to change his medication. And these things can happen. So we need to kind of start looking at it as something that people can live with and cope with. And for families, we need to sensitize the society, really.
There's still a whole lot more we could say about mental health, but for now, let's take a short break. We'll be right back.